How well are you recovering from your workouts? Is it something that you think about, or do you not even notice it? For many people, they fall into one of two categories. Either they are really big into doing all the tips and tricks to help their body recover, or it's something that never even crosses their mind. On today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, we want to talk about this idea of workout recovery, some things that you can do even before your workouts to help you recover from your workouts, and why you should be considering how well you're able to recover from your workouts. We're going to cue the intro song, and then we're going to jump right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise, specifically exercise that's geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. Now, today we are talking about recovery from your exercise, recovery from your workouts. In some circles, this is a hot topic. That is the thing, in their opinion, the most important part of exercise is how you're recovering. But for many people, it's not something that they consider whatsoever. So really, where should you be? Should it be your number one thing? Or should it be something that you don't pay any mind to? And not only that, but what could you do to help boost your recovery if it's something that you decide that, yeah, it is something I need to add in?
You're definitely right, Charlie. The idea of recovery when it comes to working out definitely circles in some groups of exercisers and doesn't in other groups of exercisers. And probably the people that are like thinking about this recovery, they're either into sports performance or they're into using exercise to, like, they're like the super passionate exercisers. Like, exercise is a significant part of my life. And then the other group, which I think focuses a little bit less on recovery, are the people that are using exercise mostly for a tool, and they really don't want exercise to be consuming their life. They don't want these health steps to be consuming their time. And there's nothing wrong in either category. I actually would say that Charlie would be in the category of exercise is a huge part of my life. I spend a lot of time finding new supplements, trying new techniques, trying all these things. And I would find myself in the other category. And in both categories, you can use exercise to improve the health and function of your body and the health of your body. So there is no fault in either one, but I think it's important to talk about recovery because in one category, recovery might be kind of blown out of proportion, and the other category, recovery, is not talked about at all. So it's important that we're talking about what is the recovery piece and Charlie and I's perspective on it, and you're going to find that this perspective is a little bit different than probably what you see in mainstream media because, you know, we like to be a little bit different. Now, there is a large chunk of the recovery conversation that kind of stems around nutrition. And to be honest, like, that was my first experience into the idea of, well, what things can I do to help my body recover better from my workouts? And I mean, even as early as, I don't know, I think it was like 8th grade or whatever, 9th grade, you know, I remember going to Sam's Club with my mom and getting a giant box of Boost. I got a thing of Boost and I got a thing of Ensure. You know the stuff that people drink when they're really struggling to get in calories? Is Boost and Ensure, they're both like a drink thing?
Yeah, they're a drink thing, right?
Oh, okay.
And so they have protein in them, they have some carbs and stuff. And I thought, you know, I'm going to start drinking this like after basketball practice and after I work out to help me recover. And they were disgusting, but I would make myself drink them because, like you were saying, I was totally bought into this idea of, well, if I work out really hard and then I help my body recover better, then I can come back and work out really hard again and do that faster and my performance will improve better. So I was totally in that category. But for me, it was all about nutrition, right? So then it kind of evolved into the whole like carb to protein ratio. And there were like certain foods that I would eat right after I worked out. And then that even carried into college where I had my specific post-workout shakes that I would drink that were designed for recovery and whatnot. And you're right. And then that even evolved into, okay, well, now I'm going to start doing these different, exercises and training things after I do my workout to boost my recovery. So like I've been through that whole spectrum of stuff of like, okay, these are all the different things that I do to help my body recover. And sure, there's value to doing it, but it really does not have to be that extensive, and it really does not have to be that complicated. And a lot of times, the biggest thing that you can do is not even something you do after you work out, but actually revolves around like how you're working out.
Absolutely. And I will say that I never actually focused on nutrition for recovery. Before I became a professional in this field, I always use stretching and foam rolling for recovery. I remember after every workout, and I think you were a stretcher and foam roller too, Charlie.
Big time.
Yeah, I would spend 15 minutes or more stretching and foam rolling, and I actually loved it because it was a good excuse and reason to like lay there, on the ground at the gym. I think the mental piece of it was just as valuable to me to have time where I'm laying there, relaxing, trying to breathe, because stretching hurts. So, you're actively trying to breathe and relax. And I think that there was so much value in that, which in my education now, I've realized there is a lot of actual value to breathing and focusing on your breath and relaxing and actively trying to separate yourself from stressors of the world. So anyways, that was the avenue I always took for the physical piece. It was stretching and foam rolling. And if you don't know the world of stretching and foam rolling, there are really no rules to it. You kind of just learn from whoever's sitting next to you. And then I was in the field, meaning I was a student in the human performance area. So all my friends were into working out. So we would exchange cool stretches and foam rolls and all the stuff. So that was my perspective. And I have to say, I do none of that now. And I'm way less symptomatic in terms of achiness, post-workout soreness, and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, look, if you are an extreme athlete, like if you are exercising for 2-3 hours at a time, like there's probably some things that you're going to want to do to make sure that your body stays feeling well after you're working out. But the majority of the people are not working out that hard or for that long of a duration. And so because of that, it's not that the recovery piece isn't important, but all the kind of complicated things that try to become more mainstream and try to get normalized is like, this is stuff you need to do. A lot of it is pretty unnecessary for people that are just trying to exercise to be healthy. And kind of like I alluded to earlier, there's actually a lot of things that you can do during your workout to make it so your body recovers really well from your workout, such that your exercise is something that builds the health and function of your body and doesn't just break it down.
So here's a problem in how we're thinking. And Charlie, this stems off of your idea of your exercise needs to be building your body and not breaking it down. And you're probably listening to this like, duh, I'm working out. It's like to get stronger, to build my body. That's what I'm doing. That's what workouts do, right? Well, yes and no. There's an efficient way to go about this, and there's a less efficient way to go about this. Now, if you're listening to our podcast, you're probably listening to this because you like to use exercise to improve the health and function of your body. And so that is the perspective that we're going after. If you are a performance person, meaning you're training for a sport or an event, some of your training will likely sacrifice parts of your health to elicit an ability to participate better in your sport or an event. But again, we're talking about people that are wanting to use exercise to improve the health and function of your body. Here's the thing. A lot of the way that exercise is presented to us through social media, at your gym, and now after COVID, outside, is in a way that is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Meaning, many people work out and they almost do too much. They're doing too much range, too many reps, too much weight. What ends up happening is that there has to be this recovery period. So what that means is that you're doing the 2 steps forward, meaning you do great big strides and leaps in terms of how much you're doing, the volume, the intensity, your heart rate that you got, all these things that we call stimulus to create change. But then it's too much. So then the following days, you actually have to take a step back because now you're having to recover from that massive amount of stimulus, that massive amount of volume, weight, time, intensity, all that stuff that you knocked out of the park when you did your workout. And so what we often find is this inefficiency in workouts, especially, again, if you're not training for an event or a sport. A lot of people are doing too much at once, and then it takes a little while, a couple days, to then recover. So that's kind of your one step back. And what we find is that if we can figure out a way for you to work out where maybe each workout you're only taking one step forward, and then you never have to take that step back, but you get to take more single steps forward because you're not taking so many days to recover, or you're not taking that much time to let one area of your body rest.
Yeah, you're right on with that, Julie. If you think of like, okay, a horizontal line going straight across, and that's like your baseline. When you come in for your first workout and you're most rested, your body is most ready to go. And then over the course of that workout, your body starts getting depleted, you get more fatigued, you get weaker, and so then you start to dip down. That line starts to dip down. And then now all of a sudden it's 60 minutes, have gone by and your workout's done and you're a couple levels below where you came in. Now you need to take the next, 24 hours, and the hope would be you can just get back to baseline. But what we find is that a lot of people aren't able to get back to baseline for, a few days after that, in terms of their strength, in terms of not being sore, in terms of feeling like, okay, yeah, now I'm ready to work out again. Then you go 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then all of a sudden, finally, you're back at that baseline level again, with the hope being, well, maybe that baseline got nudged up a little bit. And what we're saying is you actually don't have to have that giant dip down from your workouts. You can have something that is far less taxing on your body, that is much more stimulating to your body, and just kind of little by little bumps up your baseline of where you're able to function and how your body's feeling. But you don't have to take that giant recovery period after your workout because of how hard you pushed yourself and how intensely you tried to work out.
I first want to give a general statement to sum up what Charlie just said, and then let's give you some specifics on how you could apply this general statement. And this is something Charlie and I say to our clients all the time. You have to do what you can do to one day be able to do what you can't do. Okay? And I love this statement because so many people feel like in their workouts, they have to do something that they couldn't do. Like they have to push the limit or go beyond the limit or go to the point of complete exhaustion or making yourself want to vomit, or, your muscles need to be literally on fire, or you need to be quote unquote crawling out of the gym. So this is like you're pushing the limit. But what we find is if you really stay within your limits, then your body will adapt to be able to eventually help you do more, making your limits bigger, making your limits higher, making your limits at a stronger weight. So if you keep that in mind, always do what I can do to one day be able to do what I cannot do, versus push the limit or try to do what I couldn't do last time, this time, and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So we want you to stay within your limits, stay within where your body is saying you can exercise and you can challenge and stimulate. And that will allow your body to adapt and make those slow building blocks so that there's less of that, a big building block and then a tumble down, a big building block and a tumble down.
Yeah, this is along the lines of actually one of the very first podcasts that we recorded, which was like hitting singles with your workouts versus trying to hit home runs. Mm-hmm. And the idea being that, all right, if every time you come up to plate, you try to hit the ball at the park to just crush your workout, well, there's going to be a lot of times where you end up striking out, you're going to swing and miss, you're going to hit the ball in the completely wrong direction, versus if you are just trying to, every single time you go up, just hit a single, get to first base, just, a nice easy hit, and, just make it a little bit farther. And then you do that multiple times in a row. Well, all of a sudden you get just as much progress as you did hitting the ball out of the park once, but without all those negative repercussions. So I know we're throwing a lot of analogies and metaphors out there, but we want to try to convey this concept in a bunch of different ways because it so goes against what most people think should be happening with their workouts. Most people think that, well, I should be more sore from my workouts, or I just should be sore in general from my workouts. And that soreness is a good thing. And then I need to recover from that soreness. And then I can go back and I can work out. And what we're saying is actually you can cut out those middle 7 steps and just go from workout to feeling good, to workout, to feeling good. And then, okay, over some period of time, you notice that your capacity starts to increase and your abilities start to increase, your strength and your coordination, all those things start to increase. And oh yeah, by the way, you never actually have to go through the feeling bad part. And then while you're working out, because you are staying within your limits of what your body can do, but you are continuously increasing what your body can do, you can work out harder, you can work out longer, you can work out more frequently, more intensely, and not get those negative repercussions that you were getting before as far as soreness, achiness, beat upness. So I think for us, when it comes to the idea of like, well, how do I recover faster from my workouts? It really starts with, well, what are you doing with your workouts and how respectful are you being to your body with your workouts? How appropriate for your body is your exercise? And that really is the number one thing you can do from a recovery standpoint, in our opinion.
Yeah, make it so that you don't really have to recover all that much. Charlie, what was that thing that you told me that I have, like high K?
High K, yes.
And that means like high, like I want like feedback right away, or I want to see like the reward right away.
Yeah, you're very likely to kind of jump from one thing to the next in order to get this kind of like reward mechanism going.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got this high K, and I think a lot of people that work out, and a lot of people in general, have high K. Did you ever know someone that was like on a weight loss journey and they weigh themselves every day in hopes that they just get like that boost, that bump because they've dropped an ounce or whatever? Well, I think one way that we get that boost or that bump from a workout, like, yeah, I did a good job, pat myself on the back, give myself a high five, is like if we wake up the next day and we're sore, right? Because we've also been fed this story that this is how you work out. You work out, you do weights, and it makes micro tears in your muscles, and then those muscles repair themselves, your body repairs them, and that's how you get stronger. And that makes sense to us. And so when we feel that soreness, we're like, heck yeah, I did a great workout. It's just a sign of a good workout. That's how I know I did a good job. That's how I know we're making change. That's how I know I'm getting stronger. It's like the stories we tell ourselves. But guess what? If you work out in a way that is just shy of getting sore, you get the same, if not better, adaptation and response. And the reason why I'm saying better is because your body's not having to actually repair those micro tears. It's the chemical changes that happen in your body when you're exercising. And if you keep yourself just shy of that soreness level, which, yes, I know it's hard to gauge, but if you take notes on yourself and you're listening to your body as you're working out, you can usually do a pretty good job of this. If you stay just shy of being sore the next day, you're going to notice that you get equal amounts of adaptation without all that recovery time, which is that one step back piece.
And something that's been brought up to us in the past by one of our mentors, Tom Purvis, is this idea of a suntan versus sunburn, or a callus versus a blister, right? Like, we all know what it would take to build a callus over time versus building a blister, or building a really nice suntan versus going out and getting sunburn, right? It's the intensity of the exposure in a given period of time. You do less intense, less exposure, less duration of, being out in the sun, and over the course of a summer, you might build a really nice suntan. You sit outside after being cooped up all winter, shirtless for, 5 hours outside because you want to get it all in at once. You're going to build yourself a really nice sunburn. And so just doing it really intensely is not going to shortcut your results. If anything, it's going to deter your results. And that's really what we see with exercise as well. That muscle damage that, is promoted as being so beneficial, it actually reduces the results you get from your workouts. That's not the thing that builds muscle. That's not the thing that makes you stronger. That's not the thing that makes you better conditioned. You get stronger, build muscle, and get in better shape despite all of that. But that muscle damage is actually slowing your progress. So our suggestion is exercise at an intensity level and stop your workout at a time before your body starts to experience those negative repercussions. Now, like you said, Julie, that's really hard to gauge. That takes experience. That takes trial and error and giving it a shot and realizing, oh, I did too much. That's kind of the thing with exercise. You only know you did too much after the fact, right?
Yeah.
But there are some things that you can do during your workouts to err on the side of not doing too much while still challenging your body and while still pushing you in the right direction.
Now, we want to jump into these tips, but I've got the stories. So I got to share a quick story, because the next point that I want to bring up before we give you the tips is that you cannot base what you're going to do off of anyone else except yourself, because everyone is so different. Okay, so here's the story. Every summer, Charlie has this thing. Charlie has this thing. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I think I know what you're going to say.
Charlie has this thing where he's like, okay, I don't want to get burned. So every day he takes his shirt off, he wears his shorts on our deck, and he gets sun. And he either puts a timer on, or if we're listening to music, he's like, okay, for 2 songs, I'm on my back, and for 2 songs, I'm on my stomach, and then I'm in the shade, because he wants to do micro doses of getting sun exposure. And yesterday was the first day that he did this. And I'm sitting on the deck rocking our newborn, and he takes his shirt off, and I look over, and then I look away, and I literally did a double take because I thought he had like SPF 100 white pasty all over him. He said, "What? Did you think I had a white shirt on?" And I was like, "No, I actually thought you had like SPF 1000 on with, how that stuff is really white, because he's so pale and white.
You have to rub it in with a knife."
That's right. You just spread it on like butter, and whatever happens, you just go with it. But I bring that up because what's so interesting is, because of Charlie's genetics, he is super pale. He's very prone to getting a sunburn. And I am completely different. I can get a really good tan. It takes me a really long time to get a sunburn. I can put on just a little bit of suntan lotion. And the only time I get burned is like if it's my first exposure and I was out there for 4 hours or something. And so I bring that up because Charlie doesn't have control over how much his skin can tolerate before it gets burned. I also don't have control. I would say I have the advantage because my skin handles more before it has a sunburn, but it doesn't matter what is what. We just have to accept what is. And so everyone's body has a tolerance level, and that depends on your genetics. It depends on the wear and tear that your joints have had through the years, and it also depends on your conditioning. And the conditioning part comes in where Charlie, yesterday was his first day. He could handle without a sunburn probably 2 songs, and that's what he did. So 6 minutes on each side? But by the end of summer, his skin will have built up enough protective mechanism. I think it's like they build up melanocytes or something. I don't know. Don't trust me on those words, but you know what I'm saying. He builds up a little bit of a tan, a very little tan, and his skin can resist getting burnt. So by the end of summer, he has more resilience, or I guess in the workout world, we could say that conditioning, right? So as you build yourself, you get more conditioning, and your body can handle more without having that negative repercussion of soreness or achiness, or in my analogy, a sunburn.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that story. I think
everyone loves that story.
It's a great story. It is a great story. Okay, so what are some things that you can do during your workouts to err on the side of building the health and function of your body as opposed to breaking it down? Well, for one, I think when you are doing your resistance training, you need to be really mindful of the amount of motion that you're using, okay? Because a lot of times we think, oh, it was how much weight I used that, made me feel achy and beat up and sore. And actually, we strongly disagree with that. Yes, there may be times where the load is the primary driver of how your body feels from a negative standpoint after you work out, but we actually find that a lot of times it is the amount of motion that people are using with their workouts. And there are a couple things that play into that. But, like Julie was saying, hey, you need to work with what your body can do in order to someday be able to do what your body can't do. And that's not just from a strength perspective or an endurance perspective, that's from a motion perspective as well. And so when you go in and you work out, don't have a preconceived idea of how much motion you need to be using while you're doing an exercise. Feel it out, see how your body is operating at that given time, and then match your motion, match the exercise to your body to be respectful of that.
Yeah, so how do you do this? Here's what we see all the time. So, for example, if you're going to do a shoulder exercise, let's just say a chest press, most people will be like, oh, okay, so move around my shoulder, do some shoulder rolls or circles or whatever you call those things. No, do exactly the motion you're about to do, but with no weight. So stand there in front of the machine or stand there in front of your push-up spot and do the motion. See what it feels like. Is there a part where it's like pinching you? Is there a part where your body like kind of stops you? Well, then find out and self-observe, see what your body is showing you. And then when you get on the machine or you get down to do your push-ups or whatever chest pressy type exercise you're about to do, match that motion when it's weighted to the emotion that you had when you were unweighted. In addition, once you're weighted, more stuff might pop up. So then continue to adjust. If you had what you would think would be full range of motion when you were standing there, you're like, oh yeah, I don't need to make any adjustments because I'm standing here. Julie said, test the motion with no weight. If it's good, then match that to the machine. Well, once you do your first rep, if you notice that under the weight or under the resistance of the machine or the exercise, then something comes up like a pinchiness and achiness or like your body just feels restricted somewhere, well, leave that part out. That's your body's way of telling you that this is not a good spot for it right now. And guess what? When you stay within what you can do, meaning you only work in the ranges where your body's saying, yep, good, this is good, it just feels like muscle work. It doesn't feel like achy, sore, pinchy, zingy, restricted, or tight. Then your body, probably in the next couple sets, most likely, it will open up range. But don't give it that range until your body says, A-okay.
Now, the second thing that we want to bring up is this, again, going back to motion, but is the speed of motion. And one thing that we try to teach people is move slowly or not at all. And what does this mean? This means don't be flinging your weights. This means don't be thinking about trying to move faster. It literally means move slowly. Like Julie said so many times, be the slowest person in the gym. The challenge with this is that coordinating a really slow motion is super difficult. It's a really difficult thing to try to coordinate your motion to be really slow when you're used to it being faster. So a way to practice moving slowly is actually not moving at all. Start by not moving at all, doing isometrics, and then instead of doing motion, like trying to do really slow motion through a large part of the range, try to do slower motion through a smaller part of the exercise that you're going to do. And then that way you can kind of start to piece together this whole idea of moving slowly.
So let's put that into a picture for your brain. And I'm actually going to include tip number 1 with it as well. So here's what it could look like. Let's say you're about to do some squats and you're like, okay, well, Charlie said, move slowly or don't move at all. What you can start with is do a squat and only move 2 inches down and hold there and try to be really stable there. And once you've held that for however long you're planning to hold it, 30 seconds, then come back up. Cool. Now you know your body is stable in that position. You also should be checking in. Does it feel like just muscle work, or did it flare up my knee? Did it make my low back feel weird? Did it make my hip feel zingy? So you're doing all those checks in the meantime. And then you might say, okay, well, I do want to have more range. I check my range of motion. I have more range of motion. So great. Well, let's do 4 inches down this time. So this time you go further down and you do 4 inches and you hold and you're stable. And you can just hold that spot like no tomorrow. Yes, you might be working. You might feel muscles working, but you're not wobbling. You're not, I guess I want to say like unsure of the position. If you have a little quivering or shaking, that is okay. That's like a muscle response, but it's not showing lack of control. And then you can come back out of it. And again, you're checking in. Am I achy? Is it painful? Is it weird? Is it feeling restricted or tight or sore or whatever? All those things. And then let's say you're like, all right, great. Let's try 6 inches down. That would be maybe a 3/4 squat for you. You go down 6 inches and you find that when you're at 6 inches, your knee is really unstable and is wobbling side to side. And you're like, that's really different than the 2 inch and the 4 inch one. So that's a really good indicator that for stability reasons, you probably should not go further down than that 6 inches. So what you could do is maybe try the 5 inches, instead of because we jumped from 4 to 6. But you can also go from the top range all the way down to 4 inches and go super duper slow and make sure that you don't have that weak point of that side to side wavering knee that we saw. You also could do isometrics, which is that not moving in that 4-inch squat. But again, you want to be doing what you can do to be able to do what you can't do. So what you shouldn't do is say, oh, at 6 inches, I can't maintain the form. My knees are wobbling, or I've got some hip zinginess, or my low back is hurting there, and say, well, I'll just stay at the 6 and I'm sure I'll get over it. I'm sure my body will adapt. Well, your body will adapt much faster if you stay at the 4 inches and then try 6 inches next time, or try 6 inches in the next set, or try 6 inches at a different time of the workout. And what we don't want to be doing is violating what your body is telling you. Don't do this.
Yeah, when we're describing it, it can sound like a tedious process. Like, okay, I moved 2 inches, and then I moved 4 inches, and then I moved 6 inches, and then I got to back it up. And it's like, I mean, look, it can be as tedious as you want to make it, but the reality is once you kind of figure out your body, you'll be able to kind of go through this process really quickly, and you'll be able to figure out, within a couple reps, what's going on with your body and how you need to be moving. But early on, you need to be trying to pay attention to the details as much as you can, which is what most people don't do when they work out. They're trying to think about like the big things of sit down, stand up when they're doing a squat versus like, okay, how's my knee doing? How are my hips doing? Where's my motion start to shift? Where do I feel it in my joints instead of my muscles? And where can I play in that range where I just feel it in my muscles? But being able to really understand and apply these skills, this is how you learn how to exercise in a way that builds your body consistently instead of breaking it down. And we're talking about trying to recover better from your workouts. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, Charlie, you're right. It really doesn't take long to do this at all, especially because all the time when you're working out, you should be checking in. I'm about 10 weeks postpartum, and today I actually did my first weight training workout. Woo-hoo! I know. I really think I could have started much earlier, but for many reasons, I decided to wait. And so as you can imagine, my muscles are very deconditioned. They have not been stimulated directly the way that they're used to and the way that weight training does. In addition, my body has gone through a very, very large event. It's like, as you have heard, it's like running a marathon, like labor, delivering a child, keeping a baby alive for 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. It is very taxing on your body in terms of mechanically, like my body literally went through a lot, but also nutritionally, a lot of things are depleted. So in my workout today, it really didn't take very long to figure out where I needed my weights to be, what I needed my range to be. It probably took maybe the first 3 to 4 reps of every exercise to really figure it out. And then I could do the rest of my sets at that weight and range. And actually, because I haven't done stuff in so long, I noticed that each rep or each set, I could change my weight and change my range because my body was, it's almost like it's getting warmed up. It's getting used to it. It was allowing me to do more. Mm-hmm. The less stable that your body is, meaning the less that your muscles are contracting appropriately, the less motion your body will give you. So as you get things contracting and get things moving and get your joints warmed up, your body will allow you to do more because of that increased stability. But you have to stay within your range for your body to give you that without the negative repercussions.
And that contraction piece really leads us into kind of the final take-home point that we want to bring up in this idea of prioritize contraction over motion. So the first 2 points revolved around motion, body matching your exercise, moving appropriately for your body, and then moving slowly or not at all. But the kind of wrap up piece that we really want you to leave with is this idea of prioritizing contraction over motion. What does this mean? It means while you're doing your workout, focus on squeezing your muscles and have your muscles be the thing that's driving the motion, not the motion being the thing that the contraction or your muscles are trying to catch up to. And that can be a big shift for people. But really, if you're having difficulty with the idea of body matching or moving slowly or not at all, prioritizing contraction over motion can help you with that tremendously, because you're going to feel when you're moving too far, or when your body says, yeah, you know what, we've moved far enough. You're going to feel when you're moving too fast, because you're not going to be able to establish that deep sense of connection to your muscles, because you're going to be focus too much on the motion. So this idea of prioritizing contraction over motion can really help to drive home the two earlier tips and kind of bring it full circle for you as far as how to implement this in your workouts.
Now, I said something just so brilliant a few weeks ago that I have to say it again. But you know that saying, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, I brought that up in terms of contraction, and I just thought it was like such a good analogy and picture maker in people's heads. Meaning, what comes first? The movement or the contraction? A lot of people will do, for example, bicep curls, and as they're doing it, they start feeling their biceps. And that's a fine way to exercise. But what we're saying is don't do the exercise and then feel the contraction, feel the muscle. Mm-hmm. We want you to feel and identify the muscle before you start doing the movement. Okay, so I guess the egg is coming first. I don't know which one makes the chicken or the egg is coming first, but the muscle contraction is coming first before you're moving with it. So keep that in mind. That is probably a more difficult skill to do if you're not used to it, but keep practicing this one, because this one is a great one also for creating muscle stimulus and making your workout super efficient in terms of stimulating the right muscles and stimulating them most fully.
Yes. So how can you recover faster after your workouts? Our advice is to actually change how you're working out to make it so your exercise is not so depleting on your body and instead more stimulating for your body. Use your exercise to build or rebuild your body instead of breaking it down. How do you go about doing it? We recommend body matching your exercise, moving slowly or not at all, and prioritizing contraction over motion. You get those three things down and you will notice a significant improvement in your ability to recover from your workouts, because even though your workouts are going to be very stimulating and can be very challenging for your body, they are not going to be extremely taxing or depleting on your body, which means you get to continuously bump up the baseline of your body's health and function without those big dip downs in, okay, now I need to take the next 2 days to recover because I'm so achy, beat up, and sore. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is interested in exercising on a consistent basis, but is concerned that, well, every time they work out, it takes them so long to recover that it's really preventing them from exercising with any kind of consistency? Share this episode with them so they can learn about our take on what they can do with their workouts to help them recover faster. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this episode when they are looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. Hey there, it's Charlie again. One last thing. I want to let you in on a secret project that I've been working on for quite some time now. I am planning on releasing a book by the middle of summer 2021. But here's the thing, because I'm self-publishing this book, there's only going to be a limited number of copies available at any given time. So to learn more about this book and to be one of the first to find out when this book actually gets released, what I need you to do is go to exerciseforlifemethod.com. There you'll find out more information as well as some exclusive bonuses that I'm offering just for simply staying in the loop with what's going on with this book. So to learn more and claim your bonuses, go to exerciseforlifemethod.com, enter in your information, and you'll be automatically kept up to date. Learn all about the book and bonuses at exerciseforlifemethod.com. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.